So this is one of the best Ice Shard builds for the Sorcerer in Season 1. You will do billions of damage, and you can easily clear nightmare dungeons that are 20 to 30 levels higher than yourself. So let's check this out. Okay, so I'm going to show you clearing this dungeon, and as you can see, I'm level 80, and I'm doing a tier 78 level nightmare dungeon, making the enemies level at 132. So the enemies are 52 levels higher than myself. This build is really strong and can do billions of damage. And easily destroy bosses. Now you'll need certain gears and stats in order for this build to work, and I will highlight them while going over this build. So starting with the Malignant Hearts. Now of course the season's best item is the Barber Wrathful Malignant Heart. So this Malignant Heart is required for this build to work in order to clear the highest level nightmare dungeons. The Barber Wrathful Malignant Heart is the best Malignant Heart in the game. And with this Malignant Heart, you can easily do billions of damage while clearing out huge groups of enemies. Now this build is still strong without the Barber Wrathful Malignant Heart, but it will be difficult to clear the highest level nightmare dungeons without it. Now the next two Malignant Hearts I have are more defensive Malignant Hearts due to the accessory socket color being blue. So I'm using the Revenge Malignant Heart and the Prudent Heart Malignant Heart for defense and survivability. And personally, I think these are the best defensive Malignant Hearts in the game. Now if you have an orange color accessory socket, then I would use the Taurasha's Malignant Heart for increased damage. Or if you have a pink color accessory socket, then I would use the Determination Malignant Heart for the increased resource regeneration. So the other two Malignant Hearts you can switch around depending on the accessory socket color, but the Barber Wrathful Malignant Heart is required for this build to easily clear out the highest level nightmare dungeons. Okay, so now let's check out the skills. Now our main skill is Ice Shards, so this will be our huge damage dealing skill. The next skill is Frost Nova, and this will freeze and apply vulnerable to enemies. Now the next three skills will be defensive skills, so Flame Shield, Ice Armor, and Teleport. Now Flame Shield and Ice Armor is good for extra defense and survivability, and Teleport is one of the best movement skills in the game. And the ultimate skill I'm going to take is Deep Freeze, and this is basically a get out of jail free card. With this skill you become immune and you reset all your cooldowns. Now this skill you can switch around depending on your playstyle. Now you can switch up the skill for Blizzard, Meteor, or Inferno, but personally I like to use Deep Freeze. Okay, so next let's check out the enchantments. Now the first enchantment I took is Firebolt, and the Firebolt enchantment applies burning damage to all our skills. Now the reason we want burning damage to all our skills is because of the skill Devouring Blaze. Devouring Blaze will drastically increase our critical strike damage against burning enemies. And the second enchantment I took is Ice Shards, and this will automatically fire Ice Shards to frozen enemies. Now I will switch up my second enchantment to Frostbolt if I'm fighting a boss. Just be aware the skill Ice Shards does not apply chill, and Frostbolt will apply chill to all your skills. So having the Frostbolt enchantment against bosses will quickly stagger the boss, so you can unleash a ton of damage. But once you defeat the boss, make sure you switch your second enchantment back to Ice Shard, so you can easily clear packs of enemies. Okay, so next let's check out the skill tree. So starting with the basic skills, I put 1 point into Firebolt for the Firebolt enchantment, and I put 1 point into Frostbolt for the Frostbolt enchantment. And you only want to use the Frostbolt enchantment when you're fighting bosses, so you can stagger them really quickly. But other than bosses, you want to use the Ice Shards enchantment, because this will automatically fire Ice Shards to frozen enemies, and with this you can easily clear huge packs of enemies. So next for the core skills, I put 5 points into Ice Shards, a point into Enhanced Ice Shards, and a point into Destructive Ice Shards, and this will be our main damage dealing skill. Next I put 1 point into Devastation and 3 points into Elemental Dominance, and this will increase our core skill damage. Now next for the defensive skill, I put 1 point into Flame Shield, a point into Enhanced Flame Shield, and a point into Shimmering Flame Shield. I put 1 point into Teleport, a point into Enhanced Teleport, and a point into Shimmering Teleport. I put 1 point into Ice Armor, a point into Enhanced Ice Armor, and a point into Shimmering Ice Armor. Next I put 1 point into Frost Nova, a point into Enhanced Frost Nova, and a point into Mystical Frost Nova. And this skill will freeze and apply vulnerable to enemies. Next I put 1 point into Elemental Entombment and 3 points into Glass Cannon. Next for the Conjuration skills, I put 3 points into Precision Magic for the increased lucky hit chance, 1 point into Align the Elements, and 1 point into Protection. Now for the Mastery skills, I put 1 point into Icy Veil and 3 points into Snap Freeze. Now because this build is building lucky hit, Snap Freeze does have a high chance to take effect. Now just be aware that Snap Freeze is needed for this build because the skill Ice Shards alone does not apply chill or freeze enemies. And with this skill, you don't always have to use Frost Nova to freeze enemies. Next, I put 1 point into Inner Flames and 3 points into Devouring Blaze, and this skill will drastically increase our critical strike damage against burning enemies. And next, for the ultimate skills, I put 1 point into Deep Freeze, a point into Prime Deep Freeze, and a point into Supreme Deep Freeze. And this is my get out of jail for free skill. This skill will make us immune to all damage, will do tons of damage and chill or freeze enemies around you, and this skill will reset all your cooldowns. Next, I put 3 points into Permafrost, 3 points into Hoarfrost, and 3 points into Icy Touch. And these skills will increase our damage to our frost skills. And I put 3 points into Frigid Breeze, and this skill, with enough lucky hit, will allow you to generate mana very quickly, making it possible to use Ice Shards all the time. And last but not least, for the key passive, I put a point into Avalanche. This skill will increase the damage to Ice Shards, and the skill won't consume any mana. Okay, so next let's check out the gear, and I'm just gonna highlight the important stats and legendary aspects for each piece of gear. Now, the gear is very important for this build to work. So if you have worse gear than what I have currently equipped, then more than likely you'll be only able to clear nightmare dungeons that are maybe 20 to 30 levels higher than yourself. If you have gear similar to what I have, or even better gear, then you can easily clear nightmare dungeons that are 50 levels higher than yourself. But I will have a D4 build planner in the description below with the best stats and legendary aspects you're looking for. So starting with the helmet, the stat you're looking for is cooldown reduction, and the legendary aspect I have is that your lucky hit chance is increased by 19% while you have a barrier active. Next, for the chest piece, now the stat you're looking for is damage reduction, and the legendary aspect I have is that you gain 0.5% increased armor for 4 seconds when you deal any form of damage, stacking up to 30%. Next, for the gloves, you're looking for ranks to Ice Shards, critical strike chance, and lucky hit chance, and the legendary aspect I have is that you deal 30% increased damage to vulnerable enemies while you have a barrier. And next, for the pants, the stat you're looking for is damage reduction, and the legendary aspect I have is that Frost Nova gains an additional charge, but the cooldown per charge is increased by 34%. This legendary aspect is important, so we can use Frost Nova multiple times. Now, for the boots, you're looking for movement speed and ranks to teleport, and the legendary aspect I have is that Flame Shield lets you move unhindered through enemies. Enemies you move through while Flame Shield is active are immobilized for 3 seconds. This legendary aspect is good for immobilizing enemies, and this also staggers bosses really quickly. Next, for the weapon, I went with a wand. The reason why is that its base stat has lucky hit chance, and the stat you're looking for is critical strike damage and vulnerable damage. And the legendary aspect I have is that Ice Shards pierce 4 times, dealing 21% less damage per subsequent enemy hit. And this legendary aspect is required for this build to work. You want your Ice Shards to pierce so it can hit multiple enemies, allowing us to proc our lucky hit chances as much as possible. Next, for the amulet, you're looking for movement speed and cooldown reduction, and the legendary aspect I have is that you deal 53% more damage to immobilized, stunned, or frozen enemies, and this legendary aspect just drastically increases our damage. Now, for the rings, you're looking for critical strike chance, critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, and lucky hit chance, and I have these stats for both my rings. And on the first ring, the legendary aspect I have is that your mana regeneration is increased by 49% if you have not taken damage in the last 2 seconds. Now, this legendary aspect will greatly increase our mana regeneration, and just be aware, with all the defensive skills you have equipped, you should be avoiding any type of damage, so this legendary aspect should be always on. And the next ring's legendary aspect is that the avalanche key passive now applies to 1 additional cast. This legendary aspect is important for this build for the avalanche key passive to apply additional times. And next, for the offhand, the stat you're looking for is cooldown reduction and lucky hit chance, and the legendary aspect I have is that you deal 24% increased damage while you have a barrier active, and with this build you should have a barrier active majority of the time. Now, for the gems and Malignant Hearts. So for the armor, you're looking for ruby gems for the increased maximum life, and emerald gems socketed in the weapon for the increased critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. And for the Malignant Hearts, I have the Barber Raffle Malignant Heart for insane damage. And since my other 2 accessory socket colors are blue, I have the Revenge Malignant Heart and the Prudent Heart Malignant Heart for defense. Okay, so next let's check out the Paragon Board. Now, just be aware that I'm only level 80, so I don't have a fully optimized Paragon Board. But once I reach level 100, I will update this build and fully optimize the Paragon Board. But as of right now, this is somewhat optimized at level 80. So starting with the starter board, the glyph I chose is Exploit, and this will increase our vulnerable damage. I then headed up this way, and for the next Paragon Board, I took Frigid Fate. I took this path, and for the glyph, I took Tactician. This glyph will increase bonuses to all rare nodes within range, and the addition additional bonus is that you deal 10% increased damage for 4 seconds after casting a defensive skill, which is really good to increase our damage. And the increased bonus we're getting from rare nodes is the vulnerable damage, which will greatly increase our damage. Then I headed this way so I can get more increased vulnerable damage, and the next Paragon board I took is Enchantment Master, and the glyph I'm using is Destruction, and this will increase our critical strike damage. I then headed down this way, and the next Paragon board I took is Icefall. The glyph I'm using is Flame Feeder, and this will increase our damage to burning enemies. And that's pretty much the Paragon board I have as of right now, but just be aware that I am level 80, and this Paragon board will change once I reach level 100. At level 100, this Paragon board will be fully optimized, and I'll have an updated video, so stay tuned. Alright, so thanks for checking out one of the best Ice Shard builds for the Sorcerer in Season 1. This build is really strong and can easily clear high-level Nightmare dungeons very quickly. I will have an updated build video once I reach level 100, and more Diablo 4 videos to come, so stay tuned. And of course,